All right, and welcome back to the second variation that I'm going to do with a slice of watermelon. And so I just kind of kept the same colors on my palette here. And this is going to be for doing a card where we're going to pretty much fill the whole thing. So we can start off here with some of our sap green. And we're just going to keep it nice and thin, nice and pastel. And if you can see, I'm using more of the side of the brush here because I want that kind of texture going on. And we will come back over that again and do more to it. So then the next part I'm going to kind of lay in, and it's okay if they bleed into each other a little bit. So here I've got my yellow ochre and my cadmium yellow, and I'm going to use a very, very thin combination of those. And kind of here on that part where right near the rind, and this part here. And so on this side out from here, I'm just going to make sure that that's soft with a damp brush. And I'll leave that little bit of space there. So now I'm going to come in here with my magenta, or you can do your crimson or a combination of the two. And again, as I lay this in, I want it a little more textured. I'm going to leave some white space in there, kind of pull it around. My goal is not to fill it in necessarily solid. Okay. So while we're letting that dry, I can come back over here and work a little bit more again. Okay, so this time I'm going to use my sap green a little more intense. It's still movable, but not as soupy. And again, using a little more of the side of the brush on this outside edge here is where I want to start to intensify that. All along that edge there. Okay. On the yellowish part of the rind, I'm not really concerned. I don't need to go over that and really add anything there, but I will go ahead and add another layer in here to the pink area of the watermelon. So I'll grab a little bit more of this. I think for a watermelon, I like that combination probably between the crimson and the magenta. Okay, going to aim for about the same consistency here too. It's liquid, it's a little more inky, but it's not like that's a lot more concentrated there. This is a little thinner, movable, but not extra soupy. And again, I'm going to do that same thing before. I just want to emphasize the texture on this. And this is where, especially, we're going to play on, when we kind of use more of the side of the brush, the kind of playing with the texture of the paper. I like using more of cold press paper versus a hot press, which is going to be smooth. Okay, and this, I do want to make sure I take it all the way, kind of get some of it here a little more intense on that edge. See if you can see that there. Okay, so I just have that top edge taped down, and what I'll do is I will trim that when I go to put this on a card blank. So I'm going to come back in again on this. Again, now this time you can see we've got our colors a little more intense. It's not as movable. And I'm going to keep that a little more textured. You know, there's all different ways and approaches that you can do something like this. Some people might like things really smooth. My personal preference is I like things a little more textured. That kind of speaks more to the aesthetic I like. I like these pretty little layered moments that happen in there. So it's kind of like I'm working with the paint, and you know, we're achieving this together. I feel when I'm being a little more careful and detailed, it's more about my control. So I like being a little more carefree and loose, because that's this part of watercolor that I like, where it's a little more playful. So I'm going to come back over this again, okay, a little more intense, same color combination, and again, so you can see each time that we add a layer of color, and we add a little bit of intensity to it. And so it just depends on how much you're adding, how long it takes you to get there on till you're happy with it. And I'm going to do maybe one final on each one. And again, I'm going to concentrate that darker edge over here on this side and just bringing in some texture in on here, and then we'll add the seeds. I think what I might do too here while I'm waiting is give this a little bit, I'm just going to mess this edge up here and just give it a little more of a softer kind of gradation to it. All right. Let's do more of the sap green. And I was thinking, let's take it just a smidgy bit deeper. I'm going to pick up a little tiny bit of the burnt sienna here. There we go. Okay, just a little texture in it. This is fun because it's not like there's a wrong way. So we're going to switch outside the box a little bit here. A little tiny bit of Viridian in this. As you can see, I'm making this up as I go along since I don't have a sample here. And I'm just going to give a little bit of this other tone on here. Just a little hint of that. Here we go. And we'll do one final layer here on our watermelon. I think I'm just going to do the crimson this time. And again, I just doesn't need to go everywhere. So get some spots where I've got some nice intensity, some nice texture. You can see all this little bit of layering going on here. Like those are the kind of things like I'm like, ooh, I love that, you know. Okay. And I think that will do it. And so for the seed color, you could use just black. I'm going to use a combination of the burnt umber with a little bit of black here to kind of make it a little deeper brown. And here's where I'm not adding a whole lot of wetness, but just kind of up in here. So notice I'm not very soupy. Just here where I can add in, I'm going to pick my drier spots first that I'm going to put this in and just give some of those, like this is a lot more wet in here. Come up here. Who doesn't love watermelon on a summer day? At least, you know, like in Florida, you know, it's kind of summer all year long. And that is always very nice. I appreciate the sunshine, being from Ohio originally. Okay. Just kind of work my way up. Okay, so it's in here, you know, here's where you want to be careful, because you can see there where it's a little more wet. It's going to bleed out. The thing is it, you know, does that bother you? I can lift up a little bit. But that's what happens when either you're not patient or you don't take time to dry. Let's see here. I might be able to put one here. That looks okay. And let's just do a little skinny one, because it's going to bleed a little bit. And then let's come back over this. We'll make it look a little more distinctive. Okay, but you can see that would be a really cute card or invitation. Like I said, given, you know, the best way when you're trying to come back and do that is you could stop and wait or take the hairdryer to it. You know, or just, I guess, going over, like if you wanted to come in and try to fix it, what I could do is blot this out. I guess this is a good time to kind of address that. And what this is going to help do is take out some of that moisture that's in the paper where I was putting the seed and the little area around it. So without adding a lot of moisture. So if I kind of replace in some of that pink that lifted, I'm not adding a lot of moisture to it. And then when I bring in with that seed, you know, I need it to be nice and dry like that. And then now I can come back in. So I guess that's a good lesson in, like, okay, this is going wrong. What do I do? How do I fix it? So there's always things that you learn as you go. And that is, I would say, the biggest thing with watercolor, that your biggest teacher is going to be you painting and practicing, because every circumstance is different. It all depends on how much water you have in the paper at that point in time, on how your paint is going to behave. So I'll let this dry, let it flatten back out, and then I'll have a cute little card to use for a friend. So I appreciate you watching. If you could give it a thumbs up and subscribe, that's always helpful, and I hope to see you for the next class.